Booktube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching my channel, Books I'm Not Reading. I am here today to do the reading shifts tag. This tag was created by Hannah at Hannah's Books, and I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. Two tremendous, wonderful booktubers. I will link to their videos down below if you haven't already seen them. This tag is about how our reading changes over time. So here we go. Question 1, how has your reading developed over your lifetime? Do the kind of books that bring you the most pleasure now differ from the books you loved most earlier in your life? If you've seen big changes in reading since you've matured, such a classy way of putting it, what might explain your changing interests? So, I am really, really fortunate in the sense that I have a book journal. It does not look the same as when I bought it. This used to have flowers all over it. You can kind of see a couple here on the back. But anyway, I've been keeping a book journal since 1996. And I'll show you so you can see, it does not have to be complicated. It really doesn't. You don't need to write reviews. I think keeping it simple is maybe best. So there's just like a recent, this is where I'm at in my book journal right now. So it starts off with the year, and then every month, every time the month changes, I write the name of the name of the month, and then I just keep numbering. But I don't write anything like how many stars I gave it. I don't write any reviews or anything like that. So there's plenty of books that I've read that I don't really remember very well, which is interesting. But nonetheless, I can definitely look through this book and see what was going on in my life. What did I read the year I lived in inner city Chicago? Believe me, it's very different from what I normally, from the kinds of things you would see on my channel now. Of course, I was a lot younger then too. What did I read the summer I lived in New York? What did I read the summer I lived in France? What did I read before I was about to get married? I'm trying to think, what did I read when I went to Paris with my mom and my sister, and so I can tell all of that in here. Some big changes. There was a time where I read a lot of Christian fiction, and I don't do that very often anymore unless it's really highly recommended to me. So there was that phase. There's some other phases that we're gonna talk about. I will say there was a big shift though. And I couldn't find the year. I apologize. One year, Jason, my galvanizing husband, got a couple of people to agree to read over the course of the year 3 big Dickens books. We read Bleak House, The Pickwick Papers, and Little Dorrit in 1 year. I think my dad and I were the only people who actually made it all the way through all 3 books that year, although Jason did eventually finish Little Dorrit. But the first house we read that year was Bleak House. Which is just, without a doubt, one of Dickens's masterpieces. And I think I had previously experienced thinking that I did not like Charles Dickens, aside from A Christmas Carol, and reading this book made me realize, no, I am actually a fan of Dickens. I want to read more by him, and reading those 3 books over the course of a year was great. And this was long before Booktube, and before I knew about Booktube anyway. And when I read Bleak House, I realized not only do I love Charles Dickens, because I honestly have no idea how he pulled this off. It's such an incredible book. But I realized I don't have to be afraid of really chunky classics. I can read them. I can do it. And it's a real like boost of confidence, and it made me not afraid to venture into deeper waters, or waters that are just as deep, I guess, maybe. So I think that was a real turning point for me. Okay, question 2. Do you find yourself choosing different kinds of books at different periods of the year? For example, do the seasons affect what you read for pleasure? Similarly, might you read very different books while on vacation? So, admittedly, when I read Prodigal Summer by Barbara Kingsolver in December, a long time ago, but anyway, I was not very happy about it. It was a book club book, and I felt like it was the wrong time of the year. I felt like my experience of reading that book would have been different if I'd read it in the summer. But most books aren't tied to the seasons. Now, I will say, I used to only read mysteries in October. And then, of course, when I joined Booktube, I realized, oh no, we read Victorian literature in October. But there's plenty of time to read mysteries the rest of the year. So, but yeah, so that was a change. I would say, like on vacation, I definitely want to take books that maybe are about the place that I'm going to, or books that I might be able to finish and leave on the plane. So if I can lighten the load at all, of course, earlier this year I went to visit Gina from Gina Stan Your Books, and brought considerably more books home, and I was reading a book that, of course, I didn't want to give away. I was reading Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell when I went to see Gina. So so I had to keep that, and I don't know how much reading I actually got done, but I love that book. But So yes, I do think about those kinds of things when I'm packing for a trip, or, if I'm just in a mood reading moment. Obviously right now I've got a stack of Christmas things that I'm looking forward to reading. So question number 3. Do specific experiences in your life ever shape what you choose to read? For example, and these examples don't really apply to me, but did you read obsessively about child rearing when your kids were little? I don't have any kids. Did you read a ton about gardening as spring is coming? About the experience of grief when someone you love has died, etc. So yes, I have had a specific experience. I'm gonna talk about it in a later question that definitely shaped my reading. I am so fortunate. I'm so blessed that both my parents are still alive. I definitely think that, like we do read by experiences like that shapes what we're reading, what we gravitate toward, maybe, right? So I can definitely see all of those things shaping specific experiences in your reading life. Question 4. Have there been any times in your life when circumstances have limited or changed your reading in some way? Perhaps caretaking responsibilities or a big move that made it hard to find as much time to read as you'd like, or a personal illness that made it harder to concentrate, or maybe just long-term travel that might have limited your book choices. How do you deal with those circumstances? So for me, the personal illness one actually drove me to read rather than hindered me. So when I was diagnosed with epilepsy in 2007, it was just, man, what a time of just really of dramatic change. And what I needed more than anything else was I needed a grand distraction. And so it took me a few months to figure it out. Like that I had to do something. I had to focus on something else, because otherwise I was just going to obsess over my epilepsy. And believe me, it is extremely hard to try to listen to your own brain and see what's happening, what's going on. So that's when I decided to read all the books that have won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, or the Pulitzer Prize for the novel, as it was previously known. And that took me, a little over 2 years to do. And so, but it helped. It really did help. It just shifted my focus over. So I have known people who've had vision problems with certain illnesses or side effects of something, and yeah, I can see how that would make a big difference. I don't have the greatest vision. I've been wearing glasses since I was probably 8 or 9 years old. So I do know that eventually things that are really small type, I'm gonna have to read on a different device. So, but for the moment, I do still really enjoy reading physical books. Okay. Question 5. Booktube is full of discussions of reading slumps, when dedicated readers seem to lose interest for a while in books. Sometimes they just can't find a book that appeals to them. Have you experienced a slump? And if so, how did you handle it? If not, do you have advice to give to people who are experiencing reading slumps? So I had a massive reading slump. And I will link to a video where I talk about this a little bit more down below. But I was fired from my job at the public library. And it was such a strange experience to look at books, and I might as well have been looking at like 2x4s, or they were no longer, it was no longer something that was like, I'm going to read this and I'm going to dive into it and I'm going to be, transported to this other world. I'm looking straight across from me and I keep seeing all the Shakespeare, right? Like it wasn't like that. This slump started about 2015, February of 2015. And I'll be honest, do you know what got me out of that? Was starting this channel. So I could tell like Jason was super excited about Booktube. We'd been listening to Booktube. He'd been watching Booktube videos for several months. And he'd started his own channel, and went to England for this big literary event and get to meet booktubers like Mark Nash, and oh my gosh, Jasmine. I can't remember Jasmine's last name. Anyway, but so we got to hang out with some booktubers, and so I started my channel as a way to share my reading life with my husband, and to have at the beginning there, man, we had talked about Booktube so much. But it really did help me get out of my slump. Now, if you already have a channel and you're like, that's not gonna work for me. Or you know, if you want some advice, I would say like there's two paths out of a reading slump. The first one is to read something totally different. Read something, I mean, because even through that slump, I was still reading. I just wasn't reading anywhere near as much as I do now. So I would say read something wildly different from what you normally read. I grabbed this one, and it's not fair for me to grab it. It's Jason's book, which he still hasn't read, but like The Dinosaur Lords, right? Like this would, for me, would like completely pull me out of my comfort zone, but it would be just radically different from anything else. The other thing I would say is to maybe reread something. And what I think I would do is I would reread the Betsy Tacy series. This is the first 4 books in the series. And these are definitely like more kind of middle grade sort of books. But then Betsy gets older, and it goes throughout the rest of high school and then post high school. So, yeah, I mean, they're just charming books. So comforting, so cozy. I love them. And yeah, so I would say like find a book that you love, and reread it. That would be my advice for getting out of a reading slump, or start a Booktube channel. And then you have to figure out what to talk about. Let's see. Question 6. Booktubers also talk about book hangovers. When readers are so moved by a book that they find it difficult to move on, to a new book. Have you ever felt this way? Yes. I have definitely felt this way. I have finished The House of Mirth, which I'll be talking about on Friday. But this, yeah, it's kind of, I'm having a little bit of a book hangover. So what am I doing? I am reading a book of Christmas stories. So I think short stories are an excellent way to get out of a book hangover. And I'm reading it on my e-reader because the type font in that book is so small. Sometimes I don't think book hangovers, I don't know, like for me, some of the best reading experiences of my life haven't made me stop reading anything else, but it's just like that book stays inside of me. So in 2023, I read Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This is the translation by Julie Rose, which I highly recommend. And do you know what? Like, I finished it in February of 2023, and the whole rest of the year, this book just sang inside of me. And it was wonderful, though. It wasn't something like, again, that I was afraid to pick up another book, but like that book just made my spirit soar so much. So I think there's different ways to handle kind of book hangovers, but like, again, right now, like this is such a great time of year. If you are in a book hangover, like there's tons of, Christmas content that is very small. Another thing might be like read a middle grade book, read a YA book. You just like want to get back into something, right? Question 7. Tell us about a few books that almost always work for you. A favorite throughout your life, despite any changing reading tastes. Something that always seems to hit just the right spot when you need a lift, or perhaps some lifetime book hangover where the text will always be at the back of your mind. I love this question. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you're probably going to know at least one of these books. Of course, Betty Smith, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This is not just a book for women, okay? Everyone will love this book. This is such a great book, and I have read it many times, and I'm probably due to read it again. So I love it though. I just, to give you some idea of how much I love, especially this cover, my first copy of this book got ruined in a staining incident with the bookcase, and I waited a long time to find a used copy in perfect condition that was this cover. So anyway, Betty Smith, Tree Grows in Brooklyn, definitely. The other one is kind of, again, pretty different, but I will never get over it, just like I will never get over Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and that's Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried. This is a book about Vietnam. It's not a necessarily a happy book, but the writing in it just blows me away every single time. Every single time. And I've said on my channel before, if you think this is not a well-written book, like, I want you to go to a bookstore, find a copy, and sit down and read the first couple pages. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, again, this is a book I've read many times, and I'm probably due for a reread. So I would love to hear your answers to these questions. I am going to tag some people down below, but maybe you don't want to do the tag, you just want to answer a couple questions, or if you don't have a channel, feel free to answer any questions that you like, because I think this is just a fascinating topic about how our reading lives change over time. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts down below. Booktube, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll be back soon with another video. Bye.